I'm very delighted to welcome Will Parker.
Good morning. Nice to see you all this morning. Morning, Mumford. You're looking very dashing this morning, if I might say. True gentleman, cultured, refined. I like that. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way. It's my favorite. It was the spring of 2006, and here I was, a public school kid from the small town of Linfield, Mass., about to tour the campus of one of New England's prep schools. I was in 8th grade, 7th grade actually, and therefore would be the youngest kid on a tour of 8th graders who were actually eligible to apply. Why begin the process so early, one might ask, and I was really the one who thought it made no sense. My mom was told that the application process was quite time-consuming, and so there I was in the back seat of the car, nervously awaiting what would become my future. In what seemed like the blink of an eye, the day came that I arrived at Brooks for the first time as a student in early September of 2007 to report for the early athletes' preseason training for the upcoming football season. Having never played a down of organized football in my life, I had naively hoped that by simply being on the football team and maybe cracking that varsity lineup, I could gain immediate friends and respect for what I thought were solid athletic abilities. One glance at the guys who would be my teammates was all it took to completely dispel all of my misconceptions. In fact, the upperclassmen and the seniors in particular were anything but the spoiled, preppy mama's boys that I thought they would be. Nearly all of them towered over me and were so intimidating, and it seemed to me Brooks had gone out and recruited a bunch of grown men in their late 20s and early 30s from a local prison. And all Brooks asked is for them to lay out every single freshman that stepped on the field. Needless to say, the conclusion of that 5-day period was nothing short of a godsend, and never in my life up to that point had I been so happy to start school. Freshman orientations I welcomed as a wondrous reprieve from preseason, but it wasn't long before I realized that it was very difficult to make friends for 2 reasons. The first of these is that I maintained more or less the same friendships in public school from 2nd up through the 8th grade, and so I was very unsettled by the fact that I was in an environment in which I knew and was known by no one. My personality didn't really do me any favors either, as I was very shy, and the rare times that I did engage in conversation with others, I would say very little, often along the lines of, "Pass the salt," "Excuse me," or when I felt particularly adventurous, "Where's the bathroom?" On top of all this, the fact that I found myself at a school in which I might as well have been a foreign exchange student, and yes, I was extremely homesick, I tried to bury how much I missed my friends and family by withdrawing from the social scene at Brooks, which only served to push others even further away, to the point that I was described by a peer once as a hermit. I became so intent on withdrawing from Brooks that I would rush back to my room from class and would lay on my bed and stare into my laptop in my little corner. My only refuge from a world I felt I did not belong nor was welcome in. Niche, or niche, as my good friend Pete McKenna likes to say, is a word that defines all of our lives in one way or another. Niche is a powerful word. It is your niche that determines who your friends are, what you do with your time, the way you think, and the kind of life you lead. To me, the foundation of your niche is in relationships. Some of my classmates, Anastasia and Nicole, to name a few, have already talked about how your closest friends, confidants, and partners in crime shape your identity and can impact you far beyond that first introduction. My first of these impactful relationships at Brooks was with Tommy Wentling, with whom I've been happily married for the past 3 years. Tommy and I met in the Wilder Dining Hall in the Brooks Brothers and Sisters meeting, designed to have sophomores and juniors show the incoming students the ropes and make them feel at home. I sat down at the table of my Brooks brother, Justin Toomer, and then One of a kind, truly. And then saw a kid I recognized from football come sit down at the table next to me. And he immediately started asking me all these questions about Brooks. Now, imagine this scenario from freshman Tommy's perspective. You sit down next to a kid with 5 o'clock shadow, thinking that, of all people, this kid has to be a teacher, an upperclassman, or at least a returning student. But after you start asking him a few questions, he says, "Dude, I'm a freshman." Exactly like that. Apparently I went on to say the following to Tommy, quote, "I'm a real straight shooter, Tom. I love just, gets better. I love just doing my work, handing it in on time, without fail, and to the best of my ability." Let's just say it's been quite the turnaround in 4 years. My first encounter with Pete McKenna is the definition of a bad first impression. So much so that I think it's a miracle that we ever became friends. One day on the football field during practice, Pete and I were standing on the sidelines with our fellow freshmen, trying to hide amongst each other in order to avoid playing time, you know. Pete, being the good-natured soul that he is, decided to crack a joke to lighten the mood, and apparently it wasn't that well received. So I went over to him and said, "Wow, that really wasn't funny at all." And then I patted him on the back and said, "It's okay, though." The final of my freshman year encounters is with our very own president, Jack Artigan. I'm wearing his blazer, by the way, tweed, lovely. Like that. Jack and I were in physics together as freshmen and sat next to each other for most of the year. Now, physics was not exactly my strong suit, so I would often make wisecracks to Jack during class trying to get a laugh out of him. Jack was very stiff at first, unsure how to respond to what he must have thought was a complete nut job. But before long, he was cracking smiles and then joined me in my immature quest to make freshman physics as amusing as possible. The joke, however, would always end up being on me when our tests and quizzes would come back, and our teacher, Miss Stripling, would come to Jack first and say, "Oh, Jack, this was wonderful. Excellent job." She would then come to me, and her feedback was somewhat different. "Oh, Will," she would begin as if she was diagnosing me with a terminal illness. "Not quite. Not at all, really." It took me almost the entire year to figure out that Jack actually studied and did his homework, and that he really wasn't just a genius who could look at the book as often as I did, not often, in case you were wondering, and get good grades. Sachin Shah, or the Doctor, as we call him, rounds out the list of my mafia of man friends. Though I had encountered Sachin on occasion in my freshman year at Brooks, there came a day sophomore year when Pete left his room for a couple of minutes, leaving me in the room alone with Sachin. This brief window of time would lead to Sachin becoming one of my most trusted friends in a relationship that will continue far beyond Brooks, as it will with the president, the admiral, Pete, and the Master Chief, Tom. Yes, we do have nicknames. It's, you know. I can't begin to talk about relationships, their meaning, and their ups and downs without mentioning this last friend of mine. Callie Will was a girl that upon first glance freshman year, I never would have imagined the crazy adventure that would lead Callie to becoming one of my best friends. Our relationship over 4 years has evolved in ways that have allowed me to grow and find myself. And she is as much a part of that journey as anyone sitting in this chapel. These friends are but a few of the people who have been with me every step of the way. And for the handful of others out there, you know who you are. For those of you who don't know, I practically live at the lake, enjoy playing a little keyboard here and there, like to act, sing, and dance, for those of you who have been on Facebook recently. But what's most important is that I've come to find my own identity. my own niche at Brooks. And to me, finding out who you are is more important and more challenging than receiving any honor, accolade, or award. So throw yourself into what Brooks has to offer, because you will enrich your life, as mine has been at Brooks, by the people you meet and the experiences you share together, which shall be yours forever. In the words of Alan Alda, you have to leave the city of your comfort and go into the wilderness of your intuition. What you'll discover will be wonderful. What you'll discover is yourself. Thank you.